They're probably most known for being part of GameXplain, but they're also an indie game developer, was a former member of Source Gaming, and is most recently newly married. I have Tris here to talk about their life, experience working in the world of content creation, and relate with each other, talking about where we fit in with the LGBTQ plus community. So here they are, about to get revealed. This is take two because I wasn't recording audio before. This is a video part of an ongoing interview series that I call Revealed. We're not doing a take three. As with every YouTube video, if you like what you see here, help me appease to the algorithm by leaving a like and subscribe if you want to see more. I have a list of guests lined up I'll be doing this with, ranging from artists, YouTube personalities, and Twitch streamers, all involved somehow in the gaming industry. So, Tris, how are you? Second time around.
I'm doing well. I'm still doing well.
Yeah. Again, thanks for taking the time to talk with me today. We've been following each other for I feel like probably a year, maybe. I don't know. But this is our first time meeting. So again.
Well, nice to meet you either way.
Yeah. I have you on here obviously because of your involvement in GameXplain, Source Gaming, Seahorse Saga, but I reached out to you because you identify as non-binary, and I feel like there needs to be more representation of that in the gaming world. So, It's important to have conversations about identity so it can be normalized one day, and I want you to know that this is a safe space. So if at any point you feel uncomfortable with something, don't hesitate to pass on answering a question.
Okay.
We won't get into deep stuff yet, so let's start off by talking about games. When did you first start playing, and do you remember what your first game was?
So I do remember my first game, which for some people it's like always a toss up. But my parents were gamers, so I got started on games pretty young. I think about 3. I had a Game Boy Color, and my very first game on it was Super Mario Land 2: Sis Golden Coins. I also had a lot of fun with like Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Blue, Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages. And it was pretty much just those games for quite some time until we got a GameCube in 2001.
Yeah. My first console would probably be Super Nintendo, just because my parents had one before I was born. But my personal first console, handheld console, I guess you would say, was Game Boy. And, I had Pokemon Red, Pokemon Yellow, but I feel like my first game was probably Kirby.
Ooh.
Kirby, or there was a Little Mermaid game on Game Boy that I remember playing a lot. I can't remember which was my first, though. So do you have a favorite character?
Favorite character for all a game, I guess, would be Rosalina from Mario Galaxy. I mean, you take my favorite color, that like kind of tealish turquoise, and space, 2 things I really love, and you put them in a character. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Solid favorite already.
Yeah. Like I really gravitate towards like minty colors, so like Rosalina also is kind of my favorite. I tweeted, I replied to you on Twitter the other day saying that Rosalina is my queen, because I mean I
she should be.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know if you can qualify her as a princess. I don't know. She's wearing a crown though.
She does wear a crown.
I may own Peach's crown, but Rosalina is number 1 in my heart.
Nice.
So I know that you have been involved with a certain game called Seahorse Saga. Can you talk about how that started and what it is exactly?
Yeah. So I went to college for game design. I think the actual like bachelor's degree term is an interactive media design with a concentration in game design. But the technicalities of that aside, it was a game design major, and leading into my senior year, we were allowed to pitch a game and a couple of the team members to work on said game. And I pitched this game called Seahorse Saga that I originally had like ideas written down in a notebook for, dating back to like sometime in high school. So I had plans for this for quite some time, and it got approved. So I, for my entire senior year, pretty much ran working on this game with friends and coworkers and other students, almost like a class for entire 2 semesters, the entire senior year. And after graduating, all of us that worked on the game loved working on it so much, and we love what we have, that we've continued working on it since. It's completely volunteer for all of us in this case, because we were all students. We're not earning money to work on this. Maybe hopefully it'll make money and then that'll come somewhere. But it's really a passion for all of us to work on this. And to describe what Seahorse Saga is, now that I went to how it came about, Seahorse Saga is it's an undersea RPG heavily inspired by the Paper Mario games, especially the first two Paper Mario games, and also a bit of the Mario and Luigi games. So you go around as like a 2D character in a 3D overworld. You have party members in battle, and they have different abilities in the overworld, and each character has a bunch of different unique aspects about them, and it's an undersea adventure. Yeah, I can't say too much more about it yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, I looked through the website and I've kind of been following it since you've been hyping it up.
Hmm.
Um, I haven't played the demo, I guess you would say yet, but it looks like I I don't know. How do you feel about like bug fables? Like that's kind of comparable.
So we learned about bug fables about 6 months after we started development.
Yeah.
And as soon as we learned about it, like we were constantly keeping up with it. It's like, oh my gosh, there's another indie game that's doing this kind of thing. That's so great. And I did I forget exactly when it was, but I was on the memory card podcast run by Push Dustin with like the lead design of Bug Fables, Gino, and that was a really fun conversation when both of us talking about our games. But I fell in love with Bug Fables after actually playing it, so it only further ignited my passion towards getting Seahorse Saga out there to get even more paper games out.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad there's not like any, I don't know, bad feelings towards them. So
Yeah. No, it's all good. It's like admiration, if anything.
yeah, yeah, yeah. How many people are working on Seahorse Saga? Is it just you?
a No, it's definitely not just me. I believe we're a team of about 12. I'm always hesitant with the number because we have people that kind of come and go, and we have people that are ambiguously just helping out in a certain area. So I'm usually struggle with the exact number, but yeah, it's about 12,
Hmm,
which is rather
nice.
big for an indie game, but it's mostly because we started off as like a college project. So it was like all the students on the team. And we
Yeah.
just kind of stuck with it. So it allows us to work within more specific areas, for example. So we have like 3 writers on the team, for example. Um, Definitely larger than your average indie game team, but we're making it work.
Yeah. I have no idea what it's like to develop a game, so it's cool to get insight. In terms of what you do for GameXplain or like what you did for Source Gaming, how,
Mhm.
I mean, like this is your job, right? So
Yeah.
how do you navigate a conversation with someone who doesn't believe what you do is valid?
That is a really interesting question, actually. Because I came across something like this, I want to say a few weeks ago, where it wasn't quite not thinking what I do is valid, but it was a well, why am I getting paid at GameXplain as a job, but for Source Gaming it was volunteer. Um, and it's really tricky, and I guess to answer that one, that's because Source Gaming is a whole volunteer group, whereas in GameXplain I was approached and I was hired. But it's really a case of content creation that people consume, that people look at in media, that they go through and they entertain with, are entertained by, or informed by. It takes time to put into it. Um, it's therefore, like, as I guess you want to say, as valid of a job as someone who does like actual news reporting on like sports, for example. I don't know why that's the first place my mind went, but if we can have news reporting on games, we can have news reporting, or if we have news reporting on sports, we can have news reporting on games. There are different cultures and different styles, but I mean, it goes a long way in the end.
Yeah, I mean, when you put like sports into consideration, we have esports, which I don't know,
Yep.
like live events are kind of similar to watching basketball. I don't watch basketball. I don't watch sports other than like the Olympics, but
Mhm.
even then, I'm choosy. Um, uh, I didn't start following Source Gaming until a little before you left.
Mhm.
Can you tell me what your role there was and what you were responsible for?
Yeah, so back at Source Gaming, I was it was we had like different roles. Like some people were translators, some people were specifically like video editors, some of us were like full on reviewers. I kind of I after some time became the video lead. So I pretty much was focused on working on videos, whether it was reviews of games that were coming out or had just come out, or like video features. Like especially since it was Source Gaming, a lot of it was Smash focused. So like little videos about characters being in Smash or that could be in Smash. We did some video like roundups on like Sakurai translations from his Famitsu columns. I was basically just kind of in charge of a bunch of video work, whether it was doing my own or helping check others before they went live. And back then, it was all like a hobby, basically.
Yeah. Um, well, I know you said that you're getting paid for GameXplain versus
Mhm.
volunteer work at Source Gaming, but is there anything else that like made you make the transition from Source Gaming to GameXplain?
So in terms of, I guess, why I transitioned, I got I not hired. I became part of the team on Source Gaming very early into 2017, like right before the Switch launched. And I was there for a while, I was there for a while, and then come like late 2020, especially when the pandemic hit, and I'd been out of college at this point, and it's like, okay, I need to get some sort of job, and applying to like game companies to work on games, I just wasn't hearing back on anything. So I'm like, well, what if I go into content creation? Like I already do enough of it for Source Gaming, so I figure if if I ever see something that's like hiring or something, I can go along those lines. I have professional experience at that point. I did like several years of it. And then like 2 months later, I saw GameXplain was hiring. So I talked with the like the other heads at Source Gaming, asking like, hey, if I applied for this, like, one, would you guys be fine with that? And two, would you guys help me references? And they helped me along the way. And then I by like end of the summer, like I think it was early October that I heard back that I made it through everything and I got hired, which I didn't really actually expect to happen in the end. It was one of those like, yeah, I'll apply to this place. Yeah, it'll be really cool to work there, but I never actually imagined myself fully getting it. Alongside the others that were picked, Chris and Joey. Excuse me. So it was really pleasant to get that, but it was very surprising. But when I talked with the Source Gaming team, I mean, they fully understood, and we've had people come and go from the Source Gaming team over the years as well. So it wasn't anything too different than what we were used to.
Yeah. Let's see. What goes into the process of creating a video for GameXplain? I mean, I imagine it's not as simple as just like recording gameplay and pasting it somewhere.
I mean, if it's like a game and watch or like a simple gameplay video, maybe. But
Yeah.
for things like reviews, I guess I'll go into reviews for example, or even an analysis. Um, a lot of note taking and a lot of scripting goes into those. Um, so it really also ends up coming down to like knowing how to phrase your thoughts into
Mm-hmm.
coherent sentences without also drawing it out for too long. Although sometimes you don't want things said too quickly because you run the risk of people not fully picking up on it. So it then becomes a balancing act of, are you over explaining or are you explaining just enough? And that goes for anything in reviews. A lot of times we go into it assuming that this may be someone's first experience with this kind of game. So what would they think? And when it's dealing with like a sequel to something that's a little difficult, but or like part of a series. So sometimes it ends up being one of those, if it's something you're well experienced with, you'll write it out all fully, and then we'll have someone else on the staff check it for edits and whatnot. And then someone to point out, oh, what does this phrase mean? Right. Someone who didn't play this game wouldn't know that phrase. Okay, time to rewrite that part. So it goes into really figuring out how to break things down to a digestible level without over explaining everything, basically.
Yeah, I'd hate to like compare it to like a college PowerPoint, but it's kind of similar, wouldn't you say? Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like in the past, like for me, when I'm presenting something, I always get like criticized for having like a monotonous voice. So I'm always trying to work on that, even though
Yeah,
it's hard.
that is something that I've also I gotten a lot better with over years of experience of narrating videos now, of just kind of adding personality into your voice and energy,
Yeah.
which is sometimes difficult if I'm recording a news report at like 9 in the morning for me and my husband's still asleep in the room because I don't have a separate office space. So like I like find myself trying not to be too loud to wake him, but also trying to put enough energy into the video. So it's kind of funny because I've had people tag me on Twitter sometimes where they can tell if I recorded something when someone else was sleeping in the room or not.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny. But overall, I try to have a lot of energy with things, and especially for like longer features where I get to like sit down, chase other people out of the house for a bit to like have the full space to myself and convey it the way I want to. I mean, it's why I have my quirky in quotes intro of Ahoy folks, because it's just me trying to add a level of personality into it all that maybe people aren't expecting.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe your ahoy is your on off button.
Maybe.
Yeah. I've always I don't know, like I grew up doing music and stuff, so I never really used my voice,
Mhm.
so to speak. Well, maybe when I'm in choir, but like mostly it's like playing instruments. So like when I'm
Mhm.
performing, I'm not like speaking to someone. So like I don't
Yeah,
know,
that makes sense.
it's weird. Um let's see. Um have you ever been a receiver of someone who participates in cancel culture? Um, I know that being someone new on a existing platform like GameXplain, like I've seen in the past that it's common for quote unquote fans to immediately reject a change.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there was definitely a good few months at first where people just weren't liking all the all the new people on Game Explain, especially since I wasn't the only one. There was me, Chris, and Joey all added, I think, within like a week of each other. And I think that was a lot of change really quickly. That
Yeah.
it took until around, I want to say like February or March, where we never really, at that point, we really stopped seeing like any sort of comments about like who are these people or something like that. Occasionally, especially on like a big analysis where it blows up, that's still where you'll see the occasional like, who is this person at Game Explain? But it's like one comment that I occasionally see. Um, so thankfully, I was never really on the major receiving end of any like harassment or any like problems having joined of like people not liking this new person. So I'm definitely grateful for that,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things that someone could have picked out in that case.
Uh,
But thankfully, I never really dealt with it that much. And even if there was like the occasional comment, it was like buried under others. It was never like nobody was like tagging me on Twitter with a ton of hate or anything like that, as far as I saw, at least.
yeah.
It probably got filtered out.
Well, I hope you know that you should never read the comments and
Yeah.
so getting into gay stuff. Being
Okay.
someone how do you feel about like queer versus LGBTQ plus? Like do you care about what term people use?
It's really interesting because I personally don't have a problem with either, but I queer is so uncommon to what I hear normally, and it's not even that it's a bad difference or anything like that. I just don't commonly hear it as much. That like the first initial instinct just immediately goes over my head, and then I like, wait, that's what they said. Okay, and then I continue. Like it's interesting because I'm so used to just the LGBTQ plus or however much of the acronym people want to say. Um, Hearing it put as anything else, it's just it doesn't connect to me right away immediately.
Yeah, I've
But yeah,
always seen queer as like an umbrella term.
yeah,
I mean LGBTQ plus gets tiring
it does,
saying.
it does, it does.
But I don't know. Like I use both.
Mhm,
But being someone who does identify as part of that community, I understand that there are a lot of different identities that people hold, and
mhm,
one thing can mean something completely different for someone else, just like the LGBTQ plus versus queer.
mhm.
What does being non-binary mean to you?
So to me, it took me a while to come to terms with that, I guess, to understand what that meant for me as well. Um, because to a lot of people under the umbrella, non-binary is very close to transgender of varying degrees on the spectrum there. And that's not really the case for me. Like I don't take it to mean an opposite in gender for me. I take it to essentially mean I don't prefer to lean heavily one way or the other. Um, I've seen it laid out on like a spectrum. So like one end being male and one end being female, and it's like a whole bunch of areas in between, basically, which that's how gender works. Basically, it's a spectrum, and there are not just two. And I kind of look at it as, to me, being non-binary means I can like slightly lean towards one side being towards male, but I can present myself however I want to. So like I have like my like rainbow beanie and like scarf that I tend to wear, but like I can represent myself how I want to without needing to conform to any real expected identities and just be me. And I think being identifying as non-binary, as they them, rather than one or the other, allows me to more comfortably do so.
Yeah, I've just started recently using he they.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like I'm gravitating towards identifying as non-binary, but like I still see myself as male.
Mhm.
I don't know. Like I get that like gender identity is important. I still think it's important, but like
Yeah.
I don't care that I'm a male, you know? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's okay. I mean, I think what's unique and special about gender identity is that it means something different to everyone else. And it's, I don't want to sound dismissive with that, to each their own, but that really is how it is. It's for each person's interpretation of themselves. If some people just don't care, then that's like, if they don't care about how they choose to identify, then that is what it means to them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But if it heavily means something to someone else, if their gender identity, be it part of the umbrella on a spectrum or very specifically male or female and their identity, then that's important to them too.
Yep. Um so I mean I know this answer, but like just
Mhm.
like for other people. In addition to being non-binary, you also identify as gay. So how
Mhm.
does that work?
So for me, it's almost like a case of not wanting to give up that identity. Because I only, I guess, came to terms with being non-binary maybe 2 years ago at this point. But I've been, in terms of realizing when I was gay, that was like 12, 13 years ago. So that's always been a really big part of my identity. And I guess to me, um, I guess to me, the identity of gay means I lean more towards, or rather, like my interests lean on the male side of the spectrum rather than the other side.
Mhm.
And I guess because I've had people ask me if being gay and non-binary means only being attracted to non-binary people, which is an interesting take on that. And I'm sure there's people that identify that way. But for me, it basically just means um, while I'm non-binary, I identify as gay because I'm attracted to the male side of the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah. Um, were you ever hesitant about coming out about like either being gay or non-binary?
Yeah, especially back during like high school, with being gay. That was a difficult time. I have not to like heavily get into it, but I have like one side of the family that's more on the religious side, but end up being more accepting, and then a different side of the family that's less outwardly religious but more bigoted. So it was a little awkward to come to terms with all of that, and the unfortunate reality of essentially coming out in the wrong order to them. So the side that was more bigoted learned before the side that was more accepting. So it was a little difficult for a bit during high school, but it was never bad like at home. It was always extended family.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I was grateful for that. In terms of being non-binary, that's where it's been more interesting because I've loosely explained it to family, but like to a level where it's they just won't care enough to question more rather than a full in-depth like PowerPoint presentation. Here's what it means. Though I have shared the occasional like Facebook post, for example, and like posted on like non-binary day and things like that. But I guess that's one I not at this point in my life, I'm not really concerned about what my family thinks. Um, but back then it definitely was difficult. Was never really a problem like at school, thankfully, and especially during college. I think a good like 2/3 of my whole friend group ended up on the LGBT spectrum. So
Yeah.
there we go.
We flock towards each other.
Definitely.
Um, are you a fan of like drag or drag race? All that?
I have friends that are, and I see things from it, and it's like woo, but I'm not personally. I don't personally uh watch any of it.
Yeah, yeah. I do.
That's fine.
Um,
That's fair. Like I said, I actually have a fair amount of friends that are really into it, so I know some things, but
yeah, yeah. It can be entertaining. It can also be annoying sometimes. Um, yeah, let's see. Do you feel that the LGBTQ plus community is accurately represented in the gaming industry?
that is because you just can't say yes,
Yeah,
uh, but my answer, but the answer to that leans closer to yes than it would have even a year ago.
yeah.
Like we're getting there, and
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing good representation. Um, nowhere near as well. I can't say nowhere near as much as there should, as much as there should be, because should is like heavily in quotes. But I guess um I guess the comfortable point of it all would be when we don't need to celebrate every time there is representation.
Yeah.
Um, which I don't know if we'll ever get to that point, but I'm hopeful that we will because it's becoming a lot more common, especially in indie games, which is very nice to see. It's becoming a lot more common in indie games to have that level of representation, and it's very nice to see. I think many instances of it having been done in games already is done pretty well. There's definitely a few cases where some people could have done better. But I think having a lot more LGBT and queer people in the gaming industry helping create all these different games is what helps get this representation in more.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, like there's always going to be progress that needs to be made. I
Hmm.
mean, for example, like we didn't, when women got the right to vote, you didn't see them saying, "Okay, that's good enough," you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
um, can you think of like something
Mhm.
that you think needs to be changed? Like, I don't know. Like you said that there are some cases that could have been handled differently. Can you like
Mhm.
give an example of that?
I think I can't give a very specific example, but I know that, especially earlier on, there's cases of not even just games, but media in general, where they try to have a really strong LGBT character or characters, and then they kill the characters off. And then
Mm,
it kind of begs the question of, was this actually good or not?
yeah,
Because you shouldn't, it's not really a good feeling to finally put representation in the game and make it a big thing, only to make their death a central thing as well.
yeah,
It's tricky because that also blends with the case of, do you even need character deaths? And sometimes sure, sometimes no. And that thing was a whole bigger different argument, but sometimes it leans in that direction of, well, did this character need to die because that was their representation, and they just kind of lost that.
yeah. And there's also like the conversation of like game developers putting in gay characters just because, or like to get attention, you know?
Hmm.
I don't know, like
Yeah, and that's also a tricky one, because
yeah,
that's another case of, what went into this basically. Like
right.
if it was just to do it to appease, well, then it begs the question of, was it done because fans really wanted it and this is them appealing to the fans, or was it just because they wanted positive attention because they weren't
Right.
having any?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it really gets tricky there, because
Yeah.
the argument can still be made. Well, there's LGBT people on the team that made it, and that's why they did it. Um, and it's hard to judge very specifically what's a good case of it and what isn't. And I think, I do actually have an example that comes to mind, which has changed since. Life is Strange, the very first original game of that came out in all of its episodes. I remember afterwards, people were really upset that the LGBT ties to the story were for characters that died. But then afterwards, they gave us a prequel story and sequels and all these different things that then went in and better represented these groups. So that kind of made up for it.
Yeah.
But initially, I do remember there was a lot of people that were upset at 1st.
I remember that too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't really know about like the history. Like I'm gonna talk about Metroid here.
Okay.
We can get Joey in. Um, I don't really know about like its development on like the
Hmm.
first game, but I think we need to have more characters like Samus. Maybe not like to induce the shocked factor that people had when they found out we've been playing as a woman the whole time, but like
Hmm.
that it doesn't really matter what gender was in that suit, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, I feel like Samus probably would not have been part of the gender binary had we not put so much focus onto like gender norms, and like I
Yeah.
think that's what we should strive towards. So um gender identity is still important, but not in the sense that someone's identity should be offending someone else.
Yeah.
I know
Exactly.
it's like not that simple, but like can we just like accept people as they are and move on? um as someone who has had experience working on games, what kind of
Mhm.
things do you consider when creating a character?
So when creating characters, and I can actually tie this into specifically Seahorse Saga. When creating characters, one thing that I personally at least try to really keep in mind, both for myself and when others on the team are making characters, is to make sure that none of them are too similar. So we want to make sure, like, for example, if the character was talking off screen, whether you hear their voice or not, if they're talking off screen, we want to be able to like know who it is based on maybe what they're saying or the kind of thing they would say. Or if they have a dialect, I guess that can work too. That's a little more direct, but otherwise, say for example, and this is not something I've personally done, but I can relate to this from stories I've heard in other kind of games, not Seahorse specifically, but say you want to have like an LGBT character in a game, and you just kind of start, working on that character and putting them in. Um, the first, the first question that kind of comes to mind is, are you making the character for this reason, or are you making a character to make a character that happens to be this? Because that distinction shapes the entire character. So something that we keep in mind with Seahorse Saga, for example, is when we make a character, we establish first, are we making a character because we want a character made, or because they need to fill a specific purpose? So if we're making a shopkeeper, that's because we need a shopkeeper, not because, well, we need another character that we want to make, and then halfway down through, hey, let's make them a shopkeeper. But yeah, if that makes sense, that might have gotten a little drawn out there.
Yeah. Here's a weird question.
Mhm.
What cartoon character were you most attracted to growing up?
That is a really good question I need to think on for a minute, but I don't know why. But my first thought growing up goes to someone from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I don't know why.
Okay. I was watching Avatar like a few weeks ago, and I was really attracted to General Zhao. Yeah.
I mean, hey.
I think it was like the mutton chops, maybe, or I don't know. Me growing up, like I never really was attracted to like male characters, but like I always closely identified with females.
Yeah, I think I definitely relate there on that. Like I can't think of as like any specific, like, even though I named Avatar as something that came to mind, I can't think of a specific character in any media that like I was like full on attracted to, but like I found myself leaning more towards like identifying more with the female characters, or like in games I tend to play the female characters more, for example. Those were things that always happened when I was growing up.
Yeah. So how have you been dealing with the pandemic? What kind of things have changed for you?
So I think getting a job in the middle of the pandemic helped me get a better schedule for myself, so I wasn't like doing the same thing every day all the time. Um, because for the start of the pandemic, um, like pretty much that first March and then like the entire summer, like I barely even went out because I'm an asthmatic, so I was like honestly afraid of the entire premise of the pandemic and COVID and all, and I wasn't really sure how to handle that. But after then getting work at GameXplain and things starting to ease up a bit, I started at least going out more, not like to crowded places or anything, but like going out for walks, things like that. And then since getting my job, then my now husband and I have spent time like on weekends, like we try to go out, like whether it's now that we're vaccinated and all, like going out to a restaurant or getting takeout and going for walks and just trying to like take time away from everything,
Mm-hmm.
which has kind of been a nice way to it's been a nice way to deal with everything, just kind of going out to a park for a few hours and just like not dealing with any of the issues, going to a secluded part of the park and just sitting down and not dealing with people, for example.
Yeah. I
But
noticed that it's been really important for me to like get out of my apartment because it's easy for me to
mhm.
just fall into darkness.
Yep.
Lack of a better word.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. And I think for me, like having things to do online with my friends helped a lot, especially
Mhm.
during like the hardest parts of the pandemic, like finding multiplayer games to play together and different things for us to do online. Animal Crossing helped right when it did,
Oh yeah.
right when it came out, for sure. um and other things like that. But I mean, as people got vaccinated and we all got better, I started like regularly seeing friends again that I know were also vaccinated and being
Yeah.
safe. Like we'll get together like once a month and do things together, and we kind of start making these things to look forward to keep going on it all.
Yeah. Let's see. What would you say your proudest moment so far in life has been?
Hmm. That's tricky because there's a lot of things that like suddenly come to mind, but I think it's going to be a tie between two things. So I hope that's not cheating
No,
to go with two
only
things.
only pick one. Sorry.
Oh,
No, you can say
no.
both. It's fine.
Okay. It's toss up between when I got picked after all my applications and all the work I did for myself, I managed to study abroad for a semester in Japan during college. And
Wow.
I still look back at that as like one of the best experiences of my life that I got to have. I loved being over there for like 4 months, and I had never really left the country outside of going to Canada to visit family.
Yeah.
So it was a really big step for me that I'm like really happy I did. And also because at that point, my now husband and I, at this point now we've been together for 10 years, but at that point, we had never really experienced time apart from each other at all. So this was like a real test for us to see how that would go. And I mean, we still communicate online all the time and did things together online despite the time difference. We figured that out. But it really it ended up being really good for both of us and learning more about each other and things that we both need during that, which leads into the other one, which is the fact that my now husband and I finally were able to get married on our 10-year anniversary of being together this
Wow.
past June,
Yeah.
which feels incredible because I mean, so many people nowadays, I mean, either get married after only a few years or don't make it that far. They break up and all. So it just felt really, really nice to, after being with him for all this time, to finally make that official for us. I mean,
Yeah.
we had been engaged for 2 years. We got engaged just before graduating college. Um, but it was really nice to, even despite the pandemic, put together something that was comfortable for both of us and fun for both of us and make it work.
Yeah. You didn't have like a giant wedding, right? It was just
No.
like
No, I think we had a total of 30 people and we made sure everyone who went was vaccinated.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think like if I ever get married, I feel like I'd just have like, like a birthday party, like, you
yeah.
know.
That's really what it's comparable to. I mean, we rented out like a cabin at like a nearby state park that had like a bunch of bedrooms and extra little cabins around for people to sleep in. And my my husband brought his whole computer and VR headset for people to try out. This was the weekend Mario Golf came out, so we all had our Switches and I had Mario Golf. So
Yeah.
one of my friends brought like a big projector that we put up against the wall and we put it up with the Switch. So we had Mario Golf on the big screen. It was just a lot of like fun little things going on, but it really was comparable to that.
Yeah.
Almost like a friend, like a friendly get together, like a birthday party. It was just, it was relatively low key and just fun get together with mostly
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah, that's all I could ever ask for. You can have your like glamour shots and stuff, but like all I need is a close knit, get together. Um,
Mhm.
what do you think the biggest misconception of you is?
I think the biggest misconception that that people tend to get from me, and I tend to see this in of like GameXplain fans too. A lot of people, for some reason, and I don't think I'll ever properly learn the answer to this. A lot of people assume that uh, what's the best way to phrase this? Um, a lot of people assume that I don't know how to phrase this. And this is gonna sound so weird too when it finally comes out. Um, a, a, a lot of people assume that I'm far more familiar with only Nintendo's core IPs than anything else, to the
Yeah.
point where I was having a conversation with somebody about it wasn't even about games, and the first thing they did was, oh, you know about that, and I'm like, what does that mean? And it kind of made me realize, like, maybe certain appearances I make or certain things I talk about online, maybe I give the maybe I give the impression I only know about certain things. I've no idea on that front. I also have a strange amount of people assume that I know everything about Kirby, of all things.
Huh.
Um, I
I
don't know
don't
why,
associate you
which
with Kirby.
which is interesting because the only people I can actually see making that association for me, there's two groups. My first like solo appearance of anything I did on my own on GameXplain was review Kirby Fighters 2 last year. So maybe they saw me do that first and assume I know a lot of Kirby. But otherwise, before GameXplain and Source Gaming, I used to run a Let's Play channel called Weehee with my friends, and it was a stupid little thing, but that was actually because one of the friends I started it with was a really big Kirby fan, but I had never played Kirby. So one of his goals with it was to make sure I played a bunch of Kirby games. So all of my first experiences with any Kirby games are logged on that channel, and I've only played like 5 of them.
Huh. Yeah.
I've loved everyone I've played, mind you, but it again, it's a weird thing of people assuming essentially that I only know Mario or Zelda. And it's either people assume I know Mario or Zelda, or people assume I know way, way more about Kirby than I ever do. Um,
Yeah. I definitely associate you with Nintendo more than anything.
yeah, and that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. But I also feel like being associated with Game Explain, like there, I don't know, like when I think of Game Explain, I also pair them with Nintendo. Is
Mhm.
that fair?
Yeah, I mean that
Yeah.
that is what most of the audience looks for. So that is mostly what we
Yeah.
cover. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what? I did think of a different funny answer of what like the most common misconception for me is because we mentioned things about this earlier, specifically through college. I don't know why, but like it was rather strange how many people immediately assumed I was straight. I don't know why. Um, like not that I made it incredibly obvious back then. I don't know if this is considered obvious now, but and this is a conversation I have with another one of my friends where like everyone also assumes he's straight and he isn't. And we kept joking, like, is there something that like we do or say that like at first glance makes someone assume that? And I asked one of my friends about it, that I had only met a few weeks before. And he was just like, well, here's the thing. And he looks at me, he's just like, I don't know how to say this nicely. He's like, but there were two assumptions that could be made about you when I first met you. And it was either that you're definitely gay or you're a stoner. And I'm like,
uh,
what? I'm not, by the way. And his only reason for assuming that was because I wore a beanie. I'm like, wow, okay.
yeah. 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 Beanie and long hair. I feel like that.
I guess beanie and long hair
Yeah.
is a look for stoners, but no. So he was just like, you're either straight and a stoner and borderline hippie, or you're gay fully. And it's like, well, you got one of those things right. But I guess other people just assume the other. I don't know. Thankfully, I don't deal with that anymore. But it happened like 4 times through college,
Yeah.
so I guess that was a recurring thing.
Hmm.
um
Well,
as a final one that literally just came to mind as I said that. Sorry to dread this out. I realize I'm very pale, but most people assume I'm white, and I'm not. I am actually, I'm half Filipino. I am half white, but people assume I'm like fully white, and I'm not.
yeah.
I look it, and I'm
I
pale, and
got.
I always see in my webcam like I always look rather pale and rather white, but I try to make it known I am half Filipino, and that is the side I identify more with.
I see it now, but like I assumed
Mhm.
you were like Native American.
I've heard that one a lot too, actually, which is really interesting because I don't personally see it, but it's a fascinating one to hear, honestly.
Um, well, speaking of Kirby, if Kirby were to gain your ability, what would it be?
It'd just be the Archer Kirby.
Okay.
Archery is a big thing for me. I've always loved that in games, especially in Zelda games, but in games in general, but also during high school, I actually did archery. It's just like a thing to try to do like after school and such. Sadly, I haven't had a chance to do it at all anymore because any archery ranges by me are like all hunting focused and like
Mm,
$200 an hour, so that's like way too expensive. But I do miss doing that regularly.
yeah. Okay, so now you're gonna get your phone and we're gonna do
All
some
right.
reactions, I guess. It was really hard for me to pick out pictures for you because unlike the other three people I talked to on this, like I don't actually know you. Like I don't have you on Facebook or whatever. So I couldn't like dig deep and get super embarrassing things. But I do have like 8 pictures for you.
Okay.
All people, mostly people. I mean,
Okay.
people and like Twitter profile pictures mostly.
Okay.
um
Interesting.
so I'm just gonna send them to you one by one and you just tell me what you think. Give me a story, a fact, maybe some tea if you have it. um
Okay. Okay.
um so this first picture is a character
Hmm.
and you just
Okay. So you were
tell
saying
me
people and it's got there. Oh,
Tell
Tyro.
me, tell me, tell me about him.
So yeah, so Tyro, my main character in Seahorse Saga. Um I the unlikely hero. Which as a fun fact, I we learned after naming him Tyro that Tyro is actually like a word used for like a almost like a rookie. And that's very fitting because he's a new knight of Atlantis. Like he just got accepted to the Royal Guard. And it's funny because the only reason why originally he was named Tyro is because he's based off a specific species of seahorse that is called the hippocampus tyro.
Ah,
And that is why he went with that name. It just ended up really working out. Um, but I don't know. I love our design for him, and I
yeah.
always smile seeing him. He's like my real character there.
Hearing you say his name and its meaning, like it made me think of Tyrogue, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I could see
Yeah,
that.
because it still has like it still needs to evolve, so it's a rookie. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So next we have a person that I
Hmm.
hope you recognize.
Okay.
I couldn't really find a good picture of him.
Okay, there's Andre. It looks like an accidental selfie.
I
Like
think he
it
was
looks like he didn't mean to take it then. I
I
think
think he
it's
was
probably my
playing Ring
video, but
Fit. I think he was playing
okay.
Ring Fit.
Okay,
Yeah.
I could see that.
But like all of you guys from GameXplain, like you do not have headshots and that needs to be changed.
That's fair. Maybe maybe one day we'll actually like have an about us page on the website
Yeah,
with
right.
like proper
And like
headshots of all of us.
now Andre has no excuse because I live where he lives. So,
You can get it professionally done.
right. Um I don't know. What's your first word that comes to mind when looking at that face?
Ironically enough, I don't know if I can put it in one specific word, but I think back to whenever Andre did Mario Kart streams and I happened to join over the years and I would end up winning. So like I would end up becoming like a rival in Mario Kart.
Yeah.
So it's just something funny I often think back on.
Yeah.
Hasn't
Next
happened too
picture.
often, but enough that
Yeah,
that is memorable to me.
yeah. Like I've played Mario Kart so many times. Like the courses are just like ingrained into my head.
Yeah.
Next picture is another person.
Okay.
I'm sending it. There it is. The person on the right, not the left.
It's so loading for me. Oh, Joey. There we go. I did not. I have no idea when Joey went to Nintendo New York, but I'm glad he has a picture there with the Link statue.
Yeah, when I tried looking for a picture of him, like there's a very questionable one, and then there's that one.
Well, at least you got this one then.
Yeah, yeah. He actually, I mean, I know you're supposed to be reacting to this, but like he lives in Sacramento, and I grew up in Sacramento, so
Oh wow,
that's weird.
that's actually pretty interesting. And now you live in the same place as Andre.
Right.
Eventually, you're just going to end up meeting all of us, is what it means.
Yeah. I also was born in New York, so
There you go. No, but Joey's been really fun to work with, and like at this point now, I was joking with him recently. Whenever I see like pictures of him online, like I want to Photoshop something Metroid into it. Like
Yeah.
now that he's so happy to have Metroid Dread coming soon, like every picture of him needs something Metroid related.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Next picture is okay, so I tried to like really do a deep dive on GameXplain to find out what your first official video was. I mean, I guess this is still technically true, but like you said that you posted something before officially joining, right? So maybe I'm still right. Okay. This
I could talk a little bit about it after seeing what it is too.
it's a Zelda Age of okay. I'm sorry I spoiled it, but there it is.
That's okay.
It's a
I got
yeah. Am I
gotta
right?
wait for it to load.
Oh,
Hold
dang
on.
it.
Yeah, no, my phone's pretty slow on it. Oh yes, the okay, yeah. So this is one of the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity videos.
Yeah.
It's like one of the analyses that we did. Yeah. So I remember I started taking on the Age of Calamity videos like as I started getting more common, and that was
Yeah.
a really exciting feeling because Zelda is my favorite series, and getting the ability to work on videos for Zelda at GameXplain right away was a really like it was. I don't want to say it was like a heavy burden put on my shoulders, but it was one of those. Well, here's the perfect test to see if I'm cut out for this.
Yeah.
And I really love how it went. That was revealed at like such a good time with all of that. The first video that I did on my own specifically was the review for Kirby Fighters 2. Like I think a week or two before this one.
Oh, I missed that. So I looked at your like live stream introduction, and then I looked at the videos after that.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. Which makes sense, obviously. No, I think for a bit in September, I had been doing like a little bit of freelancing with them. So this was before officially getting hired. It was a case of things were getting busy, so they needed like some extra pair of hands. So hey, if you know this, do you want to help out a little bit, make a little bit of money off of it? And I was like, yeah, sure. I think the first ever video I ever appeared in, though, like not just fully on my own, was the second analysis for Paper Mario: The Origami King. I think it was back in June 2020. Andre had asked me on to do a live analysis of it because I did a Source Gaming analysis for the reveal trailer that came out the same time as the GameXplain analysis did. So I guess it put me on the radar a little bit.
Yeah. I think I vaguely remember that. Let's see. Next picture is a person.
Well, there we go. It still works. Chris. Actually, this is fun. I'm actually seeing Chris this weekend, or at least this weekend from recording. Yeah. He's in New York now. Like he just got to New York today.
I said you guys don't have none of you guys in the GameXplain, but Chris did. Chris is the only one. He has a picture. Well,
Chris has professional photos because he does acting, so that makes sense. I really liked. I had a lot of fun watching his movie Hero Mode. But yeah, he's in New York now actually, and on Saturday I'm going to be going down to Nintendo New York and meeting up with him, and actually meeting him for the first time in
Fun.
person. So that's actually going to be a lot of fun.
Next picture is I mean, I don't even know what to call this, but it's another person technically.
Okay, a person technically. What's that? My phone is freezing. It'll take a moment.
Oh no.
It'll take an extra moment. So apologies for the delayed reactions on my part. Oh, push Dustin.
Yeah, I don't know what he looks like. I don't know if there's a picture available, but like that's what we know him as.
Yeah, everyone knows him as the Luma with the Wario mustache, and then occasionally the Wario hat.
Yeah.
I actually got to meet him when during my semester abroad in Japan.
So you do
Because I was
know
yeah, I do know him.
he's
'Cause
real.
I was he is indeed real. We went to Tokyo Game Show together, and we helped cover it for Source Gaming. And
Mm.
I bought him an actual Wario hat that I found a week before.
Oh,
So he has an actual Wario hat thanks to me. He did
okay.
not before, and I was like, it feels like a lie that you don't. You need this.
Does he have a mustache?
He did not when I last saw him. I don't know if he's
Okay.
grown one since, but not a
Well,
Wario mustache at the very least.
okay. Well, we'll have to
Yeah, Push is
do an update.
Push is a pretty good friend. He's I gotten pretty close with him over the years, and we talk a lot, and it's definitely nice. He helped guide me a lot through a lot of things through the years.
Yeah.
He was basically a mentor to me during my time at Source Gaming.
Yeah, I've talked to him a few times. He's very kind. I can attest to that. Next picture is of an event.
An event, okay.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So the fire that happened, what was it, April? Yeah,
yeah.
back in April. That was wild, and to be completely honest, I can't even believe the quality of the photos that we took then. It's like, wow, these shouldn't look as good as they do. It's also terrifying. um but it was not something any of us expected to happen. I mean, who expects something like that to happen? But that definitely took us a while to recover from. But thankfully now, I mean, my husband and I are still staying at my dad while we try to find our own apartment. But
Yeah.
I mean, we got um maybe like a third of all of our belongings out of all of it, because our specific apartment wasn't hit by the fire itself, but the ceiling did break and all the water from all putting out all the fires did go in, so a lot of
Oh,
things were destroyed, or just heavily ruined. But we did get a lot of things back, and we've been slowly but surely cleaning up a lot of things. But the outpouring of support we got after that on like the GoFundMe and people sharing
yeah.
it around, that was overwhelmingly touching, honestly. When that happened,
Yeah, that was really
it,
nice
it,
to
it
see.
it really helped come back from it, honestly. And then having our wedding 2 months later also really helped kind of mark a good point for us to, like, yeah, we've come back from this.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I'm glad it all worked out. Um,
yeah, which was shocking, honestly, because there was a good week in all of that where we had no idea how anything was going to go, and no idea what was going to happen from there. And I think looking back, I think all of us involved are surprised at how well we handled it in the moment.
yeah. Next picture is another person, someone you
Mm-hmm.
should definitely recognize.
Ah, yes, the husband.
Yeah.
He is actually at this moment off somewhere playing Smash
Oh,
Bros.
yeah.
He
As
runs a he
anyone should
runs
be.
in yeah, right. He runs a local event every Monday. I think he went there today to kind of help set up for another event that they're looking to do. But he's my lead programmer on my game on Seahorse Saga. He's a great Smash player. I can never beat his Bowser.
Uh,
But I enjoy every moment I get to spend with him.
Yeah. So that's all of the pictures I have for you. So I'm gonna
Okay.
bring my face back to the thing that you can't see, but that's okay.
It matters to the viewers, not to me.
Right, right. Um, okay, so next, I mean, I asked people to ask questions, but I didn't really get too much of a response, but I have two questions for you.
Okay.
Um, are there any games that disappointed you the most?
Well, mm, I don't know how to respond to specifically the most, but one of the one of the games that stands out, because I'm not easily disappointed. If anything, I'm rather like easily pleased by a lot of games. Not that I'll immediately give a game like a 10 out of 10 off the back
Mhm.
of my hand kind of thing, but usually I try to see the positives more than the negatives in most games. um Back on the Wii U, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. I never moved on from how awful that game was. Unfortunately, even just the menus of that one really bothered me, and it just felt like every small thing about that one just didn't hit me right. And then, like, the only good thing was it had an interesting roster. That was
Right.
it, unfortunately. And I'm
The
not
only
one to
good thing that
normally.
it had Rosalina in it.
It did have Rosalina's
Yeah.
debut to that, yeah. It had a good roster, but it's one of those. I'm not normally disappointed by games a lot, so the fact that I was by that one was very telling to me that, oh boy, maybe there are a lot of problems here. Um, I think I tend to be more disappointed by the overwhelming negativity people immediately throw out on the internet with specific games more than the games themselves.
Yeah.
Um, like, take Pokemon Sword and Shield, for example. I love how those games turned out. I think those were fantastic, and I really, really love those experiences. And I guess it's disheartening and disappointing to see people are still ragging on those games like they were the worst ones ever or something like that. So it's a little unfortunate there, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I don't know if I can say. I don't know if there's any other games that like really disappointed me. More so just uh the players, the fan base, the community that can get disappointing.
Well, I think one that everyone can agree on is Amiibo Festival.
You know what? I'll give you that one. Yeah, that's fair. Amiibo Festival around the same time too as
Yeah.
as Mario Tennis Ultra Smash.
That
I
was
don't know
that's
what was 2015 for Nintendo.
no clue. Um I don't know how you would answer this, but how would it
Mhm.
feel for you to have Seahorse Saga represented in Smash?
um well, obviously I know that won't happen, but
Yeah. Well, I have a
if
surprise. Sakurai is here, right?
um I think to have for any developer to have any of their IPs represented in something so huge is I can only begin to imagine how that must feel.
Yeah.
So I think speechless would be the best way to put it. I think I would just be speechless. Um, I think specifically Smash maybe wouldn't happen, but maybe when more indie collaborations like Rivals of Aether became, or like Indie
Yeah.
Pogo,
Yeah.
maybe maybe those have a potential shot in the future. Who knows? Who knows where we may see Tyro
Yeah.
later on.
Well, I guess what's in the future for you? What like projects would you like to work on other than finishing Seahorse Saga?
Other than finish, so like in terms of like content creation, or in terms of like game development.
Maybe just like life in general.
Okay, life in general, that's fair. um well, I think on the more immediate horizon, I mean, like I mentioned, my husband and I want to actually get like our own place that we can call ours, even if we're just renting, and which is problematic in America. But anyway,
Yeah.
even if as long as we can get our own place together, like after everything with the fire and still staying with family, like getting our own place would be very nice to then be able to set up our own spaces, and like I can have more than just a white background. For
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
older GameXplain videos of mine, my desk was in front of like a big thing that had all these different things on it. You couldn't see half of it, but
Just get a
it was
giant
fun stuff.
green sheet and,
Yeah,
you can be anywhere.
I've been thinking about doing that actually. um, but definitely, just I guess moving forward in life with things that need to happen there. Um, I guess as an aside, just the fact that I'm excited for Mario Party Superstars, and I can't wait to play that.
Yeah.
Borderline too much.
Well, I guess that's really all I have for you. Thanks for talking to me. I've
Yeah, thank you
enjoyed
for having me.
I've enjoyed watching you grow as a person and creator and seeing you get through fires and, you know, getting married.
Thank you.
A lot of things have happened to you since like
Even the last
last
year.
October. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I can't even imagine what it's been like. I hope you continue to find success in what you do, and you know
Thank
that
you.
I'm just a DM away if you ever need anything. Can you tell people where they can find you? I mean, people should know already, but like, just say it.
Yeah, so people can find me specifically on Twitter at Tris, or obviously or on GameXplain. That's where like all my work happens. They can check out Seahorse Saga, which on we have both a Twitter and a Facebook page, which is at Seahorse Saga. I guess if you're interested in, as we talked about here, if you're interested in seeing some of older things that I did for some reason, that would be some content that I used to do over at Source Gaming from like summer 2020 and earlier. And then I name dropped the Let's Play channel earlier, Weehee, which is we haven't done anything there in 2 years, so you're not seeing anything new. I had someone DM me on Twitter recently if I'm finishing a Kirby playthrough. I'm like, it's been 2 years, dude.
You gotta finish
um,
it. You can't leave them hanging.
but yeah, if you're curious on some of the older things I've done there, I mean, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, all right, that's it. I guess all we do now is just wave goodbye. There we go.
Farewell, everyone.